The tales of saints and apostles tend to be surrounded in legends, myths, and are normally extremely boring. Yet today we will be telling the tale of one of the most badass saints in history, a woman that played a pivotal part in shaping the modern day state of Russia. This woman that I'm talking about is Olga of Kiev. This video was done in collaboration with Project Her Story, a group of over a dozen amazing history YouTubers that are combining forces together to tell the story of women throughout history, in honor of Women's History Month. A playlist for all of our videos will be down in the description below, as well as a little card thing here, and I highly encourage you to watch them all. And for regulars on my channel and even new guests, I'm trying a bit of a new style, so let me know if you enjoy it, and if I should continue making it in this style for future videos. So anyway, let's begin. While Olga's birth date is unknown, it is put somewhere between 890 and 925 ACE. According to the later Slavic writings, Olga was of Nordic origin and born in Pskov, but little is known about her life prior to her marriage to Prince Igor of Kiev and the birth of their son Svyatoslav. Igor was the son and heir of Rurik, who had founded the Rurik dynasty, a dynasty that would hold various titles for various Russian states until its dissolution in 1610. After the death of Rurik, Igor would be under the guardianship of Oleg the Prophet, who consolidated power in the region by conquering neighboring tribes and establishing a capital in Kiev. This loose tribal federation became known as Kievan Rus, a territory which covered what are now parts of Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus. Now, Kievan Rus had loose control over a large stretch of territory, with most of it being based around a tribute system, with various Slavic tribes in the region. These tribes had come under the Kievan fold in the tail end of the 9th century, during one of the many campaigns waged during Oleg's reign. The largest of these tribes post-conquest were the Severians in the east and the Drevlins just to the west of Kiev itself. The Drevlins had been a major thorn in the side of the Kievan Rus expansion for many decades, as they often waged war against each other. In 883, Prince Oleg made the Drevlins a subject and made them pay tribute to Kiev, but they were only nominal vassals. Even still, tensions between the two groups did calm somewhat, enough so that they joined forces in some capacity to fight against the Eastern Roman Empire in the early 10th century. They were able to secure a very favorable trade deal with this Orthodox empire. It is written that pagan priests had prophesied that Oleg would die due to his stallion, and acting in direct defiance, Oleg sent off his stallion not to be seen again. A number of years later, he asked what became of the beast, and the reply was simply that it had died and its remains were located nearby. How they kept track of this horse for years is beyond me, but whatever. Upon reaching the site of the horse's grave, Oleg touched its skull with his foot, causing the snake to slither out and bite him, killing him with its poison, thus fulfilling the prophecy. Upon his death, very little information still exists as to what occurred for nearly 30 years. He was succeeded by Igor I, a member of the Rurik line. Yet, outside of him not being particularly popular with the populace, his reign was largely lost to the test of time. We do have some accounts of his attacks on Constantinople in 941 and 944, which were relatively well documented, and we also have a possible invasion of Kherson to the east, but outside of that we don't have much. Some outside writings have suggested that Rus faced a civil war of sorts after Oleg's death, between factions that were loyal to Oleg and others that were loyal to the Ruriks. However, the foundation of these claims are a little bit sketchy. The Drevlins stopped paying tribute to Kiev after Oleg's death, and instead paid a local warlord to act as their protector. Igor had subdued the tribe once before in 913, when he first gained the throne, Yet the tribe would attempt once again to refuse tribute in 945. Igor would set out from Kiev to deal with the refusal to pay tribute, leaving his wife Olga and their 3-year-old son Svyatoslav behind. Once more, Igor subdued the Drivlins, and as punishment exacted a higher tribute from them. On his way back home though, Igor had the brilliant idea to turn around and demand even yet more tribute. This idea was so brilliant that he instructed the vast majority of his army to go home, while he and only a small guard went back. And while the details of the conversation are lost to the test of time, it likely went something like this.
Hey guys, so I know that you hate me, that I just recently came, stole a bunch of your money, likely killed a lot of your people, and have like 0 people here to protect me. But what would you think about maybe giving me more money, like a lot more money, just because I say so?
The tribesmen agreed to this demand, and everyone lived happily ever... No, they executed him. The way that Igor got executed, it is written, was that they bent down 2 birch trees, tied one of Igor's legs to each, and then released them both at the same time, splitting him in 2. Much like a turkey wishbone, just much more metal-like. I do wonder if it'd have a satisfying snap though. Might have to test that. The Drivlin, somehow thinking she wouldn't be absolutely pissed after her husband was killed, sent a delegation consisting of 20 of the best and brightest, okay, maybe not the brightest, men to Olga, in an effort to have her marry the Drivilian Prince Mal. This was done in an effort to have them get control over the whole of Kievan Rus. Olga, playing nice, welcomed the 20 ambassadors who had been sent. She sent messengers down to summon them to her hall, but the pompous ambassadors demanded that they, along with their boats, be carried to her court. Remember when I said they weren't the brightest? The response was a simply sure, no problem, and her men lifted the boats with the men in them and marched towards the hall. What the Drivilians didn't know though was that before they had arrived, Olga had ordered her men to dig a giant trench. Her men carried the lazy divas over to the trench and dumped them in, boats and all. Olga rubbed 2 fingers together, playing the world's tiniest violin for these divas, then ordered her men to bury them alive. After this, she sent a message to Mal, the Drivilian prince, saying that the first group that you sent, that they still haven't heard back from by the way, were unable to convince her and to send her another. The unexpected prince did send out a second embassy, and when they arrived, Olga invited the ambassadors to refresh themselves in her bathhouse, and then burned them alive. With Prince Mal still unaware of the fate of his embassies, Olga sent a third message.
I am coming to you, so prepare great quantities of meat in the city where you killed my husband, so that I may weep over his grave and hold a funeral feast for him and his spirit.
Mal obliged and granted Olga and her entourage safe passage into their territory. You know, if 40 of your men were sent to this lady and you hadn't heard back from them, you'd think that maybe, just maybe, you'd have an inkling that she wasn't planning something peaceful, but what do I know? I'm not an expert. She hosted a massive funeral for Igor, with many of the locals, especially the elite soldiers, in attendance. However, the guests celebrated a little bit too well, and once they were drunk, Olga ordered her men to kill them. Over 5,000 people were slain that night, and having wiped out much of the elite, Olga then set about finishing her revenge. Her army quickly defeated the Drivilian army and drove the citizens into the cities. There they remained under siege until one by one they capitulated to the Kievan forces. Finally, only the capital of Igorsin, the present-day city of Korostin, stood left. The surviving Drivilians, those whom Olga hadn't buried, burned, or murdered at the funeral, begged for mercy. Lady, hey, we get that you're mad and all, and how about we just give you all this fur? So much fur that you'll cause global warming, and we call it good. Upon hearing the term, she responded simply,
Global warming hasn't been invented yet, But I'll take pity on you and ask only that you provide 3 sparrows and 3 birds from each house in the city. Then we'll call it good.
The citizens of the reed complied, and they gave Olga the birds as she requested. Yet, as you can imagine, she wasn't quite done just yet. During the night, she gave 1 bird to each soldier, and she told them to tie a thread to the bird's feet and attach a cloth bound in sulfur, light it, and release the birds. The birds naturally went home to roost, and soon the whole city was up in flames. The survivors were killed, captured, or they were left to pay a massive tribute, and she finally returned home, her revenge being finally complete. Olga would remain regent until her son was of age, and by the time she handed the reins of power over to him, Olga had formed Kiev into a strong city-state. She had consolidated its territory with a new string of forts, and she had made concessions to ensure that the situation with the Dravillians never occurred again, primarily by murdering them all. But she changed the system of tribute gathering, which was the first known legal reform in Eastern Europe. She also did her best to make friendly treaties and arrangements with other powers. During one of these is when she would convert to the Orthodox religion. In 957, she visited Emperor Constantine VII in Constantinople. He admired her looks and intelligence, and supposedly asked her hand in marriage, even though he himself was already married. Olga refused as she was still a pagan, and while Constantine was an Orthodox. She did agree to be baptized and thus became a Christian, with the name of Helen, even though it was not a name that she would ever appear to use. Again, after the baptism, Constantine requested her hand in marriage, but Olga had tricked him.
I was called your daughter during the baptism. For that reason alone, Constantine, we cannot wed. Plus, you already have 3 wives. Have some standards.
The alternative telling, and the one that I personally believe, is that she baptized herself to add a little bit of extra oil to trade negotiations with Constantine. Olga returned home from the journey with a large amount of material from him, and she sent various material and goods to Constantinople shortly after returning home. Efforts to convert the people in Kiev turned to be rather lackluster though. Olga's son didn't actually care for the religion, viewing it as very weak, and archbishops that attempted to convert the populace uttered it impossible due to the hostility. Little again would survive in writing until the 968 siege in Kiev, in which the city was nearly starved out by the Pechenyks, a semi-nomadic tribe along the North Black Sea. They were able to siege Kiev as Svyatoslav, Olga's son, was campaigning against the First Bulgarian Empire. Olga became extremely ill during the siege, and she would later die from it, and her grandson Vladimir the Great would be the one to Christianize Kievan Rus, with whatever efforts she made during her life as relatively limited in effect. However, this isn't the exact end of Olga. Nearly 600 years after her death in 1569, she would be named a saint by the Russian Orthodox Church, being dubbed as equal to the Apostles by many National Orthodox churches. This was largely due to her influence in getting the state to Christianize, even though we don't have records as to how effective she truly was. But while Olga's life ended over a millennia ago, her tale and her influence last even to modern day. And with that, another tale of history comes to an end. Hello everyone, and I hope you ended up enjoying the video. Once again, this was done in collaboration with Project Her Story, a collaboration of over a dozen creators that I had the honor and privilege to work with. I encourage all of you to check out the next video in this series, which will be covering Emma of Normandy, and it was created by a long time ago, a absolutely fantastic creator. There will be a link down below for the playlist, or you can click on the little card up here to go to that video. For anybody else watching, I would like to know if you end up enjoying this style of video. I want to try a little bit different going into the new year. As per usual, if there's a topic that you would like me to cover in the future, say so down in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and check out the other amazing videos in this playlist created by awesome historian YouTubers. I'll catch you all next time.